Deep in a rural logging site, a routine powered saw cut becomes an important safety training example when the large log unexpectedly separates beneath a worker's feet. Stepping onto freshly cut unsecured timber while operating powered cutting equipment introduces an immediate and significant stability concern. At a residential construction site, a large excavator being transported on a flatbed truck unexpectedly shifts its weight, causing it to move off the trailer. Rotating an excavator cab while it is positioned on a narrow transport trailer introduces a significant balance issue. The rear counterweight greatly alters the machine's balance point the moment it swings away from the center line. This sudden off-axis momentum can exceed the stability limits of the tracks, quickly transforming the equipment into an unstable machine movement concern. Operators must maintain perfect cab alignment with the trailer bed during the entire unloading sequence. At a busy transport yard, a worker unlatches a flatbed truck's shipping container, unaware that the shifted cargo is pressing against the doors and ready to move outward. Opening a sealed transport unit without first confirming internal load stability exposes personnel to a significant movement path and load release concern. Freight shifting during transit creates strong pressure against the rear doors. This hidden force turns the exterior locking mechanism into a key release point, pushing unstable boxes outward the second the seal breaks. Personnel must always cautiously crack the doors slightly and position themselves behind the solid steel frame to assess contents safely. At a busy loading dock, a routine delivery didn't go as planned when a large crate unexpectedly shifted and placed a worker within the load's movement path. Moving top-heavy, unsecured loads across elevated or angled surfaces introduces a significant tip-over. Concern: when gravity shifts, the unbalanced weight can quickly exceed a single worker's control capacity, creating a major contact zone and load path situation that is difficult to manage safely. Workers must always use specialized dollies or pallet jacks to secure and stabilize large items before transport. Working in pairs during unloading operations ensures vital load control and helps prevent major imbalances. If a large object begins to tip, personnel must immediately step clear of the load path. On a busy city street, a hydraulic excavator begins dismantling an old building, but the unstable structure unexpectedly gives way outward. Conducting heavy demolition near active public roadways without establishing a large exclusion zone introduces important site control concerns. The uncontrolled release of structural tension causes concrete to break apart unpredictably, transforming moving debris into fast-moving movement path concerns that can affect passing vehicles and place nearby pedestrians inside the affected area. Project managers must mandate strict road closures and utilize heavy-duty protective netting before structural dismantling begins. Operating heavy machinery to bring down walls requires a substantial buffer zone calculated for the worst-case structural movement scenario. Inside an industrial pipe factory, a routine loading task becomes an urgent safety control situation when moving rotating equipment pulls material toward the active machinery area. Reaching across or standing too close to operating, unguarded rotating machinery exposes workers to immediate machine contact and material control concerns. Loose clothing, hair, or even a momentary loss of balance can allow high torque components to grip material and continuously pull it toward contact point areas, turning a standard operational process into an important machine safety situation. Maintaining a strict, safe distance from all moving parts is the first line of defense against sudden machine contact concerns. Operating any industrial equipment without proper machine guarding in place creates an unacceptable hazard, as these shields are essential for preventing accidental contact. Inside a warehouse, a large, unsecured industrial fan suddenly moves forward after being switched on. Operating high-velocity ventilation equipment without floor anchoring transforms it into a major mobile equipment risk. The aerodynamic thrust from oversized blades creates a powerful self-propelling force, capable of moving heavy steel frames across concrete floors and creating a serious clearance zone concern for anyone in its path. Managers must permanently bolt large ventilation units to the floor or use heavy-duty chocks to prevent unintended migration. Workers must always verify locking mechanisms on portable machinery before activation, guaranteeing the unit cannot crawl under its own power. Establishing a mandatory clear zone around these fans provides a vital safety buffer, keeping personnel far from the unsafe movement radius. At a river bridge demolition site, an excavator hammers into the stone arch, triggering a major loss of structural support that causes the machine to move downward. Positioning heavy equipment directly atop the exact structure being dismantled creates a significant support loss concern. As the hydraulic breaker removes essential load-bearing supports, the suddenly weakened foundation can no longer sustain the machinery tonnage. This high-risk operational miscalculation creates an immediate and important ground support failure risk. Operators must always station their machinery on solid, undisturbed ground adjacent to the active demolition zone. Conducting a thorough engineering assessment beforehand is strictly required to determine a safe removal sequence. In an outdoor equipment yard, inflating a heavy machinery tire becomes an important safety example when the stored air pressure unexpectedly releases. Overinflating compromised industrial tires without a protective barrier transforms stored air pressure into a rapid pressure release concern, capable of creating a significant equipment control and impact zone hazard upon sudden structural failure. Workers must always utilize a reinforced tire inflation cage and a long extension hose with an inline gauge. Standing directly over the sidewall during inflation creates direct exposure to the primary pressure release zone. At a produce market, a man stands behind a flatbed truck just as a heavy wooden pallet loses balance and moves backward into the area where he is standing. Standing directly in the movement path of an unsecured truckload introduces an immediate and major impact path concern. The sudden shift of heavy cargo quickly transforms stacked materials into a significant object stability risk. Gravity accelerates this weight without warning, creating immediate exposure for anyone standing below and leaving limited time to safely move clear. Inside a busy printing facility, a routine inspection highlights a major workplace hazard when an industrial press unexpectedly activates while a worker is still inside the operating area. Reaching into the operating area of an industrial press without proper lockout procedures exposes workers to sudden, significant contact point concerns. An unexpected automated cycle delivers substantial mechanical force quickly, leaving little opportunity to move clear. Power must be completely isolated and physically locked out before inspecting internal components. Relying on an idle machine to remain stationary is a high-risk assumption. Operators must always engage mechanical safety blocks to physically prevent heavy components from descending during maintenance. Inside an auto shop, a worker polishing a sedan reacts immediately as the heavy steel hood unexpectedly closes. Relying on worn hydraulic struts to support a heavy automotive hood introduces a major contact point concern. A sudden mechanical failure quickly eliminates crucial structural support, transforming the elevated panel into a fast-moving, unsupported weight that can place any hands resting on the engine bay perimeter inside a contact zone. Technicians must always verify that all hood support mechanisms are locked before extending limbs into the contact zone. Utilizing an external prop rod provides a vital mechanical backup to prevent sudden closures. On a high-rise construction site, a worker accidentally places weight on an unsupported metal beam, creating a dangerous lever effect near the open edge. Stepping onto unanchored materials overhanging a drop creates an immediate pivot point that can fail under body weight. Gravity turns the rail into a seesaw effect, shifting suddenly beneath the worker the second their mass crosses the fulcrum. This loss of foundational integrity leaves limited reaction time, transforming a solid-looking surface into an unstable platform that creates a sudden fall prevention concern near the edge. Personnel must always verify structural support before applying their physical weight near leading edges. At a curbside delivery zone, a high-risk attempt to maneuver an oversized pallet off a truck's liftgate becomes an important safety example when the cargo unexpectedly tips. Pushing an unbalanced, top-heavy load beyond the structural edge of a hydraulic liftgate creates an immediate, uncontrolled shift in its center of gravity. This improper miscalculation allows the physical weight to exceed the worker's control capacity, transforming the freight into a significant load stability concern that creates an important load control zone. Utilizing a properly rated forklift or designated loading dock is absolutely necessary for managing oversized deliveries. Attempting to manually balance shifting weight over an open ledge is a high-risk choice that can quickly lead to loss of load control. At a busy supply yard, a cargo truck unexpectedly accelerates forward while a worker stands atop the load, causing him and heavy panels to shift. Operating a transport vehicle while personnel are actively positioned on the elevated freight creates a major, immediate fall prevention concern. The sudden forward momentum quickly disrupts a worker's footing, transforming the unsecured cargo into a sliding surface that moves them rapidly toward the ground alongside unstable moving materials. Drivers must establish absolute visual confirmation with all loading personnel before engaging the vehicle's transmission. Workers should only secure or unbind freight while standing safely on the ground, utilizing proper extension tools. Implementing a mandatory verbal clearance protocol ensures no machinery moves until everyone is entirely clear of the truck. At a roadside utility pole, a maintenance check turns into a serious safety concern when a worker on an extension ladder gets too close to an energized line. Working near energized lines without proper de-energization creates a serious electrical proximity and contact hazard. Contact or unsafe proximity can cause sudden loss of muscle control that interrupts a worker's grip and immediately creates an uncontrolled fall prevention risk. Technicians must strictly verify that all power grids are completely isolated and locked out before initiating elevated repairs. Utilizing fiberglass ladders provides a crucial layer of non-conductive protection against electrical proximity hazards. In an open railway yard, a worker using a cutting torch severs a track, unaware that the tensioned steel is about to move upward. Cutting metal components under structural stress quickly releases stored kinetic energy. This unseen tension acts like a coiled spring, transforming heavy steel into a fast-moving movement path concerned the moment its integrity is compromised by the torch. Operating without securing the material creates a stored energy movement risk. Personnel must always assess load tension before initiating any cut. Utilizing heavy machinery or industrial clamps to stabilize the rail is absolutely required to prevent unexpected movement. Furthermore, workers must always stand completely out of the potential movement path zone. At a busy loading dock, a forklift offloads a towering pallet, but the heavy, unsecured cargo unexpectedly loses stability and moves down into the load path. Lifting top-heavy, unbanded cargo introduces a major balance concern. As the heavy machinery maneuvers backward, the shifting weight drastically alters the center of gravity. This sudden off-balance momentum overwhelms the lift capacity, transforming the towering materials into an uncontrolled load stability concern that can affect anything in its direct path. Operators must consistently secure large pallets with heavy-duty stretch wrap before initiating any movement. Confirming absolute load balance is strictly essential to prevent sudden shifting. Inside a busy metalworking factory, a split-second miscalculation becomes an important safety example when an industrial press unexpectedly activates downward. Bypassing safety guards to manually adjust materials inside an active stamping zone creates an immediate major hand safety concern. The heavy hydraulic force of an industrial press operates with unyielding speed, leaving limited reaction time to move away once the downward stroke begins. This transforms the work area into a high-risk contact point zone. Operators must constantly utilize extended handling tools to place and remove materials, keeping hands entirely outside the press operating area. At a high-rise construction site, the towering silhouette of a large industrial tower crane unexpectedly loses stability and moves outward from its base. Operating a top-heavy crane with a compromised structural foundation introduces a major tipping concern. Once the center of gravity shifts beyond the engineered base limits, the heavy steel framework can suffer a rapid loss of support, transforming large machinery into an uncontrolled equipment instability concern. Site managers must strictly halt all lifting operations when winds exceed safety thresholds. While pulling a large air conditioner across the floor, an unsecured door swings open, shifting its weight and causing the equipment to tip sideways. Transporting top-heavy equipment with unsecured access panels introduces an unpredictable shift in the center of gravity. This sudden off-balance momentum allows the physical tonnage to exceed the control limits of a pallet jack, transforming moving machinery into a major clearance zone concern. A person cannot safely act as a structural brace against shifting industrial equipment. Personnel must tightly strap down all movable components before initiating transport to maintain absolute stability. If a large load begins tipping, operators must immediately step back, clear the load path, and allow the load to settle without attempting to catch it. On a rugged construction site, a heavy tractor maneuvers a large concrete mixer, unaware that uneven ground will suddenly force the top-heavy machinery to tip over. Towing tall industrial equipment across uncompacted earth introduces a significant stability concern. As the narrow wheelbase navigates unstable debris, the weight of the mixing drum dramatically shifts. This unpredictable momentum overpowers the towing hitch, transforming the trailer into an uncontrolled force that risks pulling the connected vehicle off balance. Operators must strictly survey and clear travel paths of severe ruts before relocating heavy machinery. Utilizing specialized transport for these units is vastly superior to high-risk towing across treacherous sites. In a resort courtyard, a worker using a long metal pole outdoors raises the extended tool, unknowingly making contact with an overhead energized line. Raising conductive materials near overhead electrical grids creates an invisible, serious electrical proximity zone. An iron pole can act as a direct conduit, bridging the physical gap between energized electrical equipment and the grounded worker. This sudden electrical contact hazard requires strict prevention because reaction time is extremely limited. Personnel must constantly scan the airspace before maneuvering any extended equipment outdoors. Utilizing strictly non-conductive fiberglass tools is absolutely essential when overhead electrical hazards exist nearby. Employers must actively enforce safe minimum approach distances around all energized power infrastructure to permanently prevent accidental contact. At an active construction yard, a mobile crane lifting heavy metal rods suddenly loses balance, sending its rear wheels upward before the entire machine tips over. Hoisting dense bundles of steel without deploying stabilizing outriggers introduces a significant tipping concern. As the suspended load extends outward, it aggressively shifts the machine's center of gravity past the front axle. This severe imbalance quickly overcomes the rear counterweight, transforming the equipment into an uncontrolled lever that forces the cab toward the ground. Operators must strictly calculate exact payload limits against the authorized lift chart before initiating any hoist. On a construction site, two workers drop a heavy cement bag from an elevated steel frame to a worker below. But as the bag descends, gravity quickly increases the load force. Never attempt to catch heavy construction materials transferred from an elevated height. The instant a mass begins descending freely, its force increases beyond safe manual handling limits, and what seems manageable at rest becomes extremely difficult to control safely once momentum is added. Use mechanical hoists, pulley systems, controlled lowering lines, or properly secured chutes to move heavy materials from one level to another. Ground workers must remain clear of the area below whenever materials are overhead, even during short transfers. Inside a fabrication yard, a turning forklift carrying a large cylinder strikes an obstacle, tipping over toward the worker who remains too close as the moving machinery loses stability. Maneuvering extended cargo through tight zones creates a major collision concern. Striking stationary objects mid-turn disrupts the machine's balance, quickly initiating a major tip-over. This sudden momentum transforms thousands of pounds of steel into an uncontrolled force that a person physically cannot stop or support. Operators must establish absolute spatial clearance before navigating wide materials through corridors. Reducing speed during complex turns remains essential to prevent extreme kinetic shifts. If heavy equipment begins tipping, personnel must immediately move clear and completely abandon any instinct to manually catch the moving vehicle. To keep learning from these important workplace safety lessons, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Stay aware, stay safe.